We have our first teaser trailer of Jedi Fallen Order, a video game by the subsidiary of EA Games in Respawn, and I could not be more hyped about it. Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. How is everyone going? Today we're going to do something a bit different. Usually I am here talking about tabletop games, but we are here to talk about a new video game from Respawn in Jedi Fallen Order, a character action melee focused Star Wars game, single player, no microtransactions, yay, all of that cool hype stuff. Yes, over the course of Star Wars Celebration, which has been happening over these past few days, we had our first teaser, a panel including some of the higher-ups at Respawn talking about this game. So we got some cool details to talk about. Before we do, I do want to comment on the reaction by a lot of the audience to this, which I think can be pretty much be boiled down into the positive and negatives in that EA bad, but Respawn good. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, EA owns Respawn. EA publishes all of their games, but Respawn are the company in charge of development and that kind of thing. EA are more geared towards marketing, monetization decisions, that kind of thing. So yes, while EA haven't done the best with the Star Wars franchise, they actually haven't given Respawn a Star Wars game just yet, and that does have its own implications. But in terms of what EA have done with the Star Wars franchise, they're currently 6 years into a 10-year contract with Disney, and so far that has amounted to the 2 Battlefront games and at least 1 other cancelled game, and I think it's pretty safe to say that that has been a pretty disappointing result. So Jedi Fallen Order may be the thing that either makes it or breaks it for EA at this stage with the Star Wars contract. Indeed, the whole Battlefront saga was just riddled with issues of microtransactions, loot boxes, all that kind of stuff. Indeed, EA as a company is very much the epitome of a lot of the issues that we have with modern gaming. And most of those things for us consumers revolve around shady monetization practices. If you want to know about what happened with Battlefront, read this article by Kotaku that nicely sums it up. Also, practices to do with development cycles. This is all too true with EA's recent offering in Anthem. And although, yes, a lot of that is due to the practices within BioWare, the actual development company, EA isn't necessarily blameless. They are in charge of things like the release window and funding and all that kind of stuff. That, again, is all detailed in a recent article by Kotaku. But when we're talking about Respawn, these guys have a real strong, positive tenure. Their company has created Titanfall, Titanfall 2, and Apex Legends. All things which have been very well received, all fantastic games. And indeed, a lot of the dev teams worked on the old Call of Duty games. These guys really know what they're doing. However, it must be said that all of those things I just mentioned are first-person shooters. Jedi Fallen Order is a very story-driven character action game based around melee, so it's very much new territory for these guys. However, if you did watch the panel at Star Wars Celebration, it is very clear that this is something that these devs have been talking about for quite a while. As they got into game development, they always wanted to do a Star Wars game, so it's kind of like a dream come true for them. Very much, it seems like this is in the hands of Star Wars fans, which is always a good thing, but then again, that might just be advertising spin, who knows. It kind of reminds me of Jon Favreau on the Mandalorian panel talking about how he wants to add his own stuff to the Star Wars universe, but at least in the case of Jon Favreau, we know that when he loves a universe and he adds to it, he can do great things. That has already been proven before. So it remains to be seen what Respawn can do. Having said that, early signs look good, despite the fact that we have no details on gameplay. We saw no gameplay footage. The teaser trailer we saw was all story-based. It was all made with the in-game engine, but nevertheless, there were a few little snippets of what would appear to be sort of in-game fighting and gameplay. You can see the main character, Cal Kestis, interacting with this wall, which is clearly one of those standard interactive walls that you get in all these character action games. It reminds me of something like Assassin's Creed and all that kind of thing. We can also see a small clip of a fight between Cal and a Purge Trooper. This does look a little bit like in-game combat, although it's a bit hard to tell. It's kind of like in-game combat mixed with a cutscene. So from that point of view, the early signs are good. It seems like there is a certain degree of competency in the development of this. Let's just hope that EA don't do EA things and spoil this later on. But for the time being, I choose to remain positive. I like what Respawn have done. Talking as a Star Wars fan, yes, we haven't gotten anything like this for such a long time. A real solid single-player character action game. I think it's so easy for us fans to get really sort of just overhyped and even to the point of being apologetic, where we sort of forgive EA for all of their misdeeds. And I just want to encourage you guys to be so cautious with EA because, I mean, apart from anything else, I've been a computer gamer since the 90s. I still haven't forgiven them for what they did to the Command & Conquer franchise, amongst others. However, yes, in this case, there's Disney looking over their shoulder, cracking that whip, making sure that they don't stuff things up like they did with Battlefront. There does seem to be a bit of evidence to suggest that Disney were really, really unhappy about what happened with the microtransactions in Battlefront, so maybe that has shaped EA into gear. We will see. I am cautiously optimistic, but I am optimistic nonetheless. Now, in terms of what we know about the game and its story, in fact, basically, we only know about its story because that's all that was spoken about. The main character is Cal Kestis. He was some kind of a Jedi, either a Knight or a Padawan, we don't know that yet, during Order 66. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a Padawan, just like Caleb Doom, better known as Kanan Jarrus from Rebels. And he sort of goes on this quest. He's part of this team of ragtag misfits. One of them was a previous Jedi Knight. He has his little droid friend BD-1, which is just the cutest name for a droid ever. Looks really cool. It seems like BD-1 is sort of your familiar. As you go through the game and increase your stats, you actually interact with BD-1 and he helps you out. The dev said he has a flashlight. Maybe he has some kind of abilities like a shock. This for me is very reminiscent of a character like Atreus from God of War, aka Boy. And it could lead to some very interesting mechanics. Indeed, we already know that yes, this is going to be the kind of thing where you get Jedi powers and you get more and more power throughout the game and you have skill trees, all that kind of standard character action stuff. But integrating that with a little droid sidekick sounds very, very interesting. From what we can tell in terms of the enemy in this game, we know that the member of the Inquisitorial Second Sister, this is not Seventh Sister from Rebels, this is Second Sister who actually appeared in one of the Marvel comics. Which makes perfect sense. The Inquisitorial were basically designed as a way of taking care of all the Jedi stragglers after Order 66. But what is new to this concept is indeed these Purge Troopers, pictured here next to Second Sister, which are sort of stormtroopers that were trained to actually be able to fight Jedi, but basically they find Jedi and then they call the Inquisitors in, and the Inquisitors kill the Jedi. Sounds pretty cool, and they look quite badass. Hopefully we see these guys in the Legion. That would be really, really cool. A little army of Purge Troopers with Second Sister. Ooh, I'd like that quite a lot. But probably the most interesting aspect of this story was the element of this lightsaber that Cal finds at some point during the game. When questioned, the panel members basically didn't want to say anything about this, hinting that it would be too detrimental to the plot if they explained the relevance of this lightsaber. It sounds like Cal finds this. It does not sound as if it is his lightsaber. It belongs to like a former Jedi Knight or Master or something like that. But that's very, very interesting. It sort of hints at the idea that maybe Cal was not a Jedi during Order 66. He might just be some random character that has some kind of adeptitude to using the Force. We know at the start of the story he works for a scavengers guild who is basically responsible for decommissioning large Star Destroyers from the Clone Wars era. That footage looks amazing, and there's some kind of moment where one of his friends is about to die and he has to use the Force to save him, and that's probably the moment where the Empire realise, hey, this guy can use the Force, we should probably take care of him. I mean, doing this kind of stuff while there's a probe droid right behind you, but I guess, yes, the whole morality thing, you can't just let your friend die and all that kind of thing. But it sends him on this whirlwind adventure where he's suddenly at the mercy of the Empire and the Inquisitorial, and that is pretty much all we know at this stage. Gotta say, this looks really, really cool. Reminiscent of a character like Caleb Doom, except it's being presented in what appears to be a very serious video game as opposed to a kid show. And I think that kind of take on it could make this a very, very interesting story. One more thing before we finish up this video. Yes, we have a new ship, which could enter into the world of X-Wing at some stage. This guy here, some kind of shuttle with a really big rotating wing. Looks awesome. We don't know anything about it, apart from the fact that It's operated with a joystick and Dark Jedi can jump onto it. Doesn't really look like it's anything that interesting. Certainly nothing like the Razor Crest from The Mandalorian, which I'll be talking about in a separate video later on. But in the meantime, lots of cool things to get hype about. As I said, guys, do be cautious. This is EA we're talking about. But in the meantime, in the comment section below, what do you think of this? Do you think this is going to return the Star Wars games to their former glory, or do you think this is just going to be another nail in the coffin for EA's Star Wars license? Would love to hear your thoughts. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit. Please consider supporting my Patreon. Thank you so much to all of my existing patrons. I'll catch you guys in the next video.